Here we go. Let's do this. All right, so I am the new DEIA manager at USA Triathlon, here to introduce our moderator for this awesome conversation this evening. We have with us Michanda Myles, also known as Michanda Shines. She's a true force of inspiration and empowerment. She's a triathlete, model, network project manager, MC, endurance race announcer, and host of the podcast Try Beginner's Luck, recently named the best podcast for beginners by Triathlete magazine. So Michanda conquers triathlons with finesse, graces the stage with elegance and charisma, and engages and motivates athletes, creating an uplifting and electrifying atmosphere. Definitely seen that from her. And most importantly, she loves to inspire beginners. So her mission is to encourage individuals to radiate their inner light and empower them to embrace their authentic selves, believing that true fulfillment comes from within. Michanda navigates her life with unwavering faith and determination, encouraging others to shine brightly and live authentically. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Michanda.
Thank you, Megan. Such a great pass. I appreciate that. I am super excited about today. Thank you to USA Triathlon for having me. I am honored to be able to facilitate this conversation. It's a conversation that I think so many have wanted and desired. And this is the first official live conversation that we had. Back in 2020, we did have some roundtables to start the conversation, but they were smaller and very independent. And I appreciated those. And a lot of the people that you see in this call today participated in some of those roundtables. But today we get to invite you to the family reunion per se. So welcome to the USA Triathlon Family Reunion, Empowering Narratives, a Black History Month panel. Today, I get to be joined by 5 distinguished athletes. And we're going to start with Miss Yvonne Spencer. Yvonne Spencer, she is on the USAT board. She is the board secretary, so you know she is keeping everybody in check and on charge. She is an 8-time Ironman triathlete, and she is the founder of the lovely ladies of Fast Chicks Tri Group. And they love to have their gloss because they stay glossy all the time. In 2020, USA Long Course Triathlon team member, she's also a multi-year all-world athlete. She is an avid runner of 14 marathons and ran the 2021 Boston Marathon. She has been coaching since 2017, and she's a USA Triathlon Level 1 coach and RRCA certified coach. And she's a recent retiree. So let's give it up for Yvonne Spencer, who served over 30 years, served 30 years in the U.S. Air Force. Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome.
Wow.
Next, we have Meryl McDonald Aaron. Now, I just met Meryl today, and she is absolutely lovely. And what's so striking about Meryl is that she has the longest running triathlon on Long Island in Montauk. 43 years this year of providing exceptional race day experience to participants. Meryl McDonald Allen is the race director and owner of RJA Memorial Mighty Montauk. She is a certified race director and committed to promoting the sport of triathlon and creating an inclusive and welcoming environment to all athletes of all levels, and is passionate about advocating for promoting health and wellness through multisport competition. This race, Meryl's race, is to support pancreatic cancer research. Meryl just told me that as long as she can continue to raise money for this race and to continue to support research, she will continue to do it. So be sure to check out her race. It's Mighty Montauk. Next up, we have Coach Reggie Waller. Yes, he is a USAT Level 2 coach. He's an Ironman certified coach and RCA Endurance Level 2 running coach. Reggie, he is the owner of Waller Endurance Coaching, and he is on the board of trustees for the USA Triathlon Foundation. Reggie is passionate about offering others into sport and helping each athlete reach their full potential. He strives and instills that it's progress over perfection. And that's the attitude that he generates. And if you know Reggie or follow him on social media, he is the selfie king. Reggie, welcome to the conversation. Next up, we have Jordan Hunter. Now, I had an opportunity to meet Jordan Hunter in January when I interviewed him for the Trial Beginner's Luck podcast, which released today. Jordan is one of the coolest people you'll know with the biggest heart. He's helped over 200 people in LA learn how to swim in just a year. And he does it by a donation-based pay scale because he doesn't want to have anyone miss the opportunity to learn how to swim. So Jordan is the founder of Legacy Aquatics, former aviation search rescue swimmer. He's originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and he continues to carve out a lane into a household name. And let me tell you, if you know Jordan and once you hear him talk, he is a SAG actor. So he is going to entertain, but also inform. And I love the fact that he has a heart to give back. So welcome to the conversation, Jordan. And last but not least, she is the founder of Exposed Vegan Media. Yes, that's right. You heard that correctly. Exposed Vegan Media. She's the author of Running for My Life. She's a 7-time Ironman triathlete. And she was one of the 6 sensational women, Black women, who got an opportunity to grace Kona for the all-women Ironman World Championships back in October. Jaja has a book, Running for Life, but she's also a known vegan who helps people curate their life and transpose into a very plant-based diet while still performing at a very high level. Jaja, welcome to the conversation. Everybody, how are y'all doing today? Tonight, I should say, because it's late on the East Coast.
Awesome. I found it interesting that you called this the family reunion because there's at least a couple people on this panel that I've never met before. So I think that happens at the family reunion when you find these new cousins that you didn't know you had.
West.
I am so happy to meet them and to be able to hear their stories as well. So yeah, this is definitely a family reunion. You coined it correctly.
All right. Well, let's jump right in. For those of you who are watching, please ask questions. We will be checking the chat or Q&A. There's a Q&A function, so we'll be checking the Q&A to see what questions you have, but we want to make sure that we get to your questions. But right now, we're going to start. I want to start with Miss Merrill because 43 years in the game, that's almost the same amount of time that the sport has been around. So how did you get into sport, 1, and 2, why?
Actually, my husband was the triathlete in the family. He was very competitive. He was into sports big time. And he did his first triathlon, which was then called the Mighty Hamptons. And he got hooked on it. And he came back to Montauk and figured, I can do this. And he decided to put on the first triathlon back in 1982. And well, from 82 till then, he unfortunately passed away in 2002 from pancreatic cancer. But the race has been going on since that time he started it. And when he died, it was called the Mighty Monto back then. And when he passed away, I changed the name to the Robert J. Aaron Memorial Mighty Montauk Triathlon. And I switched it over to a fundraiser. So I've been raising funds for pancreatic cancer since that time. The Mighty Hamptons, that race went on for a few years, and then the original owner migrated, and that race became dormant for a number of years. And it was revived after a few years by the guy, Steve Tapinian, who unfortunately now is also deceased. So even though the Mighty Hampton started the year before the Mighty Montauk is the longest continuous race on Long Island. So we have been going since then.
Mm. Having the longest running triathlon on Long Island, I know you've overcome a lot of barriers. Can you share with us some of those barriers that you've had to overcome?
Well, the race in the beginning, as you would know, it was a new sport. I can give a joke that the first year my husband did the race, it was done on the main street in Montauk. If you're familiar with Montauk, you would know. They just threw their bikes down anywhere. And he actually decided, in his own eccentric way, he did the bike first because he figured after the bike, people would need to cool off. So the swim followed the bike, and then he did the run. So he did his own thing that first year. But then, of course, you've got to realize after, well, it was the swim, bike, and run, and we did change to that. Over the numbers at the beginning, it was small, it was hard, it was not regulated, as you would know back then. We started off with USA Triathlon when it was called Tri-Fed. That's how far back. That was at the beginning of the triathlon thing. And so it was a struggle. It was hard to put things in place, but we made do over the years, and then things got structured. The Tri-Fed came in, we got sanctioned, and the numbers started building as people got more into the sport. So it got to a point where our race would just close out because it was the very first race of the season. Our race is normally the first weekend in June. So it was called the season opener for a number of years. Unfortunately, I would say over the last 8, 9 years, a proliferation of races started on Long Island. And everybody, I guess, felt that we can have a triathlon. So now instead of this race being the season opener, it has now become maybe the 6th or 7th race of the season. So that's one of the challenges we are finding now with numbers coming in, because Long Island is a small town. You can be considered a small town, and it's the same triathletes who everyone is competing for weekend after weekend. So that's been a challenge to keep the numbers going as it should. So, and then of course you had the pandemic came in, and the cost of putting on a race on Long Island has quadrupled. And that is also another thing that's affecting us out here. A lot of the vendors who were on before the pandemic have gone out of business, and the new ones coming in, and I suppose everybody feels it's Long Island, there is money out here, so they can afford to increase their prices. I went from paying $500 to rent a tent to $5,000 after the pandemic. So these are some of the things that we are experiencing out here.
That is a significant jump. And we're going to circle back around to find out perhaps some solutions. What can be done? How can we get people to the race, et cetera? So we're going to come back to that. But I want to come to Reggie. Reggie, you've been in sport for a couple of years, since 2011. Tell us how you got into sport and some of the challenges and or positive experiences that you've had in triathlon as a result to being a Black man in sport.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Michanda. And I ran middle distance in high school, and when I graduated, I didn't run in college, and I didn't pick up running until about 2004 when my wife and I started dating, and working in corporate. There's a lot of events going on and things of that sort. And one of my good friends, he was doing CrossFit. And, at the time I was doing a lot of running, and he was like, hey, I need to do something different. Let's do a triathlon. So I told Tone, I was like, all right, let's do it. I signed up. And to this date, what is it, 2024? Tone has not done a triathlon, but he is a great, advisor of mine, good friend, and I applaud him for that. And it was one of those things to where, it was at the local YMCA, and I got in the pool, and, it was about 450 meters. So I swam a couple laps, hung onto the wall, swam another couple laps, and was like, well, maybe the lifeguard would lose count. And then, I'll be able to get out of the water a little bit early. But I did my 450. And then once I got on the bike, we were riding through the neighborhood, had a great time, started passing the people that beat me in the swim because I was the last one out of the pool. And then on the run, felt, very at home. And after I was done, I was like, man, I got to do this again. But I, looked to my wife and I was like, how do you think I did? And, my wife, she's very honest. She was like, you need to work on your swim. And I was like, yeah, I know, I know. So, I joined a local tri club, Philly Tri Club, in Philly, got that camaraderie. And then, from there started to really, build on that triathlon career going into the Olympic distance, getting a DNF, and then almost quitting to then hiring a coach, and then getting my head back into the game. And then, like, probably about 6 months after that, uh, going to finish my first half Ironman. And then a month later, finishing my first full Ironman, which was Lake Placid. So it was definitely a journey. It wasn't something that I did on my own. I've been part of multiple teams, Philly Tri Club, Team Varlo. So, it's having that camaraderie. And, I would say it's, there's definitely challenges, because when I was, in multiple clubs, I would show up and I was maybe the only black guy out there, or maybe the only black person, um, period, between running and triathlon. So me growing up in a military family, growing up around the world, and having to learn to adapt very quickly, I think that was helpful for me, stepping into this space to where there are not a lot of folks like me. Um, but that's what my mission is, to get more individuals involved in sport. And it's I did a triathlon locally in September, and it was a sprint, and we had they had about 500 individuals. 200 were new participants. And being on the board of the foundation of USA Triathlon is great. We're trying to always encourage youth participation, inspire pathways to access and conclusion. And then the last pillar that we know right now is going on is, igniting the Olympic hopefuls there, over in Paris. So when I heard like 200 plus, I was very excited. But I looked around, and out of those 500, I was the only black that was there. And I was like, wow, this is 2023. So we got to do a little bit more. And I, even though showing up to some of these Ironman events, the number of participants that are Black African American seems to be very low. And, there's an opportunity to do more work in this space. And, how do we go about doing that? And it's not really just lowering the fees. There's more to it. And as a coach, I see, people have questions about, so what comes first? Meryl talked about it. Her husband did the bike first, and then the swim, and then the run. You know, Sometimes this is a new sport for individuals, so they don't know how to go from swim, bike, run. How do I pace myself throughout the day? When you turn on the TV, where you hear triathlon, you hear Ironman. And I remember when I was training for Placid, um, a month before, or excuse me, 2 months before Placid, my father-in-law had passed. So, family first, we did what needed to be done. And I was in Atlanta for the funeral, and I was talking with my brother-in-law, and I told him, hey, I need to get my bike to the bike shop to get maintenance. And he was like, oh, so when do you go out to Hawaii for the race? And I was like, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to Hawaii. Everybody thinks when they hear triathlon, they hear Ironman, they hear Hawaii. So, I think we need to do a good job with the narrative of stepping back and saying, triathlon is, or I'll say multi-sport, because we have a lot of duathletes out there, We have a lot of aqua bike. So there's a little bit more education that we didn't need to do in this space. And and create more awareness. And it's not just a day of grueling in the heat, throwing up on the side of the road and pushing your body to the limits. You can do a race and be done within, say, 2 hours on the weekend and still have time to hang out with family and friends. So I think, those are some of the challenges that I've seen is how do we go about telling a better narrative around this and making this more inclusive, as we look to expand the sport, because I'm very nervous as I look, with, those that are potentially looking to age out some years later, looking at youth today, no one wants to go out and train for, a long bike ride, 7, 8 hours, and then go out and do the run. So I'm thinking about our sport and saying, okay, and one of the initiatives that I'm focused on here in the PA area is around youth and junior. How do we make our youth aware and introduce the sport to them in school, in their YMCAs and things of that sort? So one of my board of trustee partners put up a donation, and that's what we're working on here to help, again, create those opportunities.
You said a mouthful, Reggie, and what I want to do is kind of chime in on, I think one of the key points of clubs and clubs not being diverse. And I'm sure those who are on the panel have been in clubs where they have been one of a few Black people. And so what would you suggest, and this question goes to the entire panel, to get more people involved on the club level and to make it more of an inclusive and welcoming environment? Because I think that's key too. Some clubs cannot be as welcoming. And so help us to have this conversation. Anybody can answer.
Okay, I'll start. First of all, when you talk about the clubs and the atmosphere in the clubs, you're going to find that with any type of organization that you are new to. It's not just relegated to triathletes, although they have a certain elitism about themselves whenever you do go to, some type of club. But I think some of the things we can do is, number one, just keep showing up. And number two, when you show up, don't take yourself so seriously. Because they don't speak to you doesn't mean it's because of the package that you're in. It could be because they just don't know who you are. So what you do is you keep showing up, you keep doing your thing, you keep learning the tools of the trade. And that's going to speak volumes as people get, a little bit more comfortable with who you are, and you get comfortable with the organization as a whole. And then thirdly, if that club doesn't work for you, then find another. There are plenty out there that you can be a part of. You can go by word of mouth, or do what I did and start your own. So I got to give my plug for my Fast Chicks. Inclusive community for women. It's a safe space, and we are welcoming to all. So you find an organization like that, and you bring someone along. It's like church, right? If you go to church and there's like, bring a friend to church, or bring your daughter to work, or whatever it's called, but bring someone along with you. All right. Be that enabler. They may curse you out at the end of the day, but they're going to have that experience, and they're going to have that exposure, which is ever so critical to this sport, just to get out there in the field, be around it, and see what it's all about. And then just let the magic happen. We have to stop saying that, well, I don't want to go to this club because it's this and it's that. All right. If you want to do the sport, then there are ways that you can create your own community. It doesn't have to be a club, but it's your own community, your own network that you work within, that will go on bike rides with you, that will meet you for a swim, that will meet you for a run, that will meet you for a brunch and bikes, you name it. But it is out there.
And I just to piggyback off of what Vaughn said, I participate in triathlon not because of clubs, but because I saw three women that made me feel that it was possible. One's name was Dawn Davis Calhoun. I saw her on a bike. She was black, light skinned. She had pink pigtails and a pink helmet and a pink bike. And I was like, I can ride a bike. Then I saw this crew of women dressed in Betty Squad, and there was one that had cornrows standing against the wall. And I was like, and she was little, and she looked like me. And I was like, I can do that. Her name is Vaughn. I've been following her ever. Then there was another woman who mentioned that she was over 40 and she made it onto the USA Triathlon team, and she was covered, and she was Muslim, and she was willing to be first at anything, and her name is Khadijah Diggs, and I've been following her ever since. And sometimes it really not just takes a group or a club. Sometimes you really just need to identify with someone who looks like you, someone you can relate to, someone that makes you think, you know what, I am pretty badass with other things that I do. And maybe if I follow those people, which is what I did, I went to find them, introduce myself. Eventually I said, my name is Jaja, after I told them how I've been following them and watching they were doing, true story. But it allowed me to see myself and see that it was possible. So I would definitely, the clubs are great, but sometimes organizations like this and conversations like this need to continue to happen because, again, I am Black for 12 months out of the year, not just February. So we can continue these conversations after this month so that others feel like they're welcome, feel like this is possible. They see and identify with someone here on the panel and think that they can do it. And that's what happened to me. And that's what I would continue to do.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. I think it's a both and. Like, Vaughn, you are very assertive, and some people may not feel as comfortable showing up constantly and being the only one. But I also appreciate that approach. And then, Jaja, I love that you were able to identify. And I think that's the key picture that we want to paint as we are empowering these narratives, right? We want to say that we need to showcase more people who look differently to give the landscape a different purview so that people can say, hey, I resonate with that person. Maybe I can do that too. And not only showcasing a particular group within clubs. So I think maybe broadening the scope of how you market so that people can engage. Jordan, did you want to add anything?
I'm the new cousin to the family reunion, so I've just been soaking up knowledge. I think coming from my perspective and how I joined into this wonderful endurance sport and endurance world is exactly kind of just what I'm doing. Is it's not only just sitting back, but also like gaining the questions and gaining the knowledge so then I can apply it. And I think to the exact point about what everybody kind of mentioned and talked about is how do I show up for groups? And for me, I didn't see myself originally in my first group that I joined. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I joined a group called the LA Tri Club. And I heard about this through a friend because I'm a swimmer. I swam my entire life. And then when I got out of the military, I was like, dang, like I really want to I got to find my reason to get up and like push myself physically still, outside of just like personal. And so, like just from another swim coach within my league. So I'm a high school swim coach as well. And she was like, hey, we go open water swimming Friday mornings at 6:15. And I'm like, whew, triggering. Like, I'm fresh out, listen, for those that are veterans, like, whew, you hear certain times and you're like, man, it's back into this. And I didn't see myself. And so that was I want to come take up space now. And that's what made me keep coming back. Cause I was like, well, I don't see anybody. And then when it was, the microaggressions of certain people, and not saying that anybody tried to, but it's the questions of, you're pretty fast. Like, wow, where did you come from? Kind of thing. And so I almost took more pride in showing up. And then I got to bring others around, because as a millennial, we live off of, if I see somebody doing it, I'm more likely to do it. So if I post about it, if I share it, or if I make it more appeasable, like somebody had mentioned, going out to brunch and getting on a bike. You don't need to be on a 12 speed, $10,000 bike. Let's get on these fixies, get a Bluetooth, let's ride down the street. You know what I'm saying? Especially during COVID, there was a huge explosion of outdoor activity, which was great. Especially in the LA, there was a lot of clubs like Ride for Black Lives, Miles for Black Equality. And so literally we just rode bikes, met at the beach, and people were around the water. And even just hearing people's narratives of like, man, like, this is my first time at the beach and I don't know how long, and they're from LA. So I think just sometimes just showing up and being the first can also become a ripple effect. Which again, no plug, is why my business has been given the name of Legacy, because for me it's either you're the first of or you're the continuing of. But you always have the opportunity to pick your decision. And so for me, if I can be the first person to do something out of my friend group, or to show somebody like, how do you even do that? Like, it's really not as hard as it seems. It's just, I've been putting in the work. It gives people more belief. It gives people more trust. It gives people more exposure. And a lot of times it's just access and exposure. And so that's my goal, is if I can get more people in the water, not only as a USA coach now, because I got my level 1 cert, but not only as a coach, but also like me doing it and being around the youth, and then showing more opportunities for youth to get into triathlons. This is free money now to go to school. Like, there's scholarships now. There's clubs out here. There's people willing and ready for the youth. And so, to what Reggie was saying, is this is how we get the next, as people go out, there's room to come in, and how do we keep bringing this access? How do we get the websites? How do we create content? How do we just afford it? So yeah, that's been my thing. Right now, I just feel like I'm called to show up. I'm called to do the race, and I'm also called to be the coach, which is a very it's a very great blessing, and I'm very thankful from God, because I approach all my swim lessons like aquatic therapy. So everything's always one-on-one, and sometimes like a 2-on-1, but I really just feel like there's a lot of healing and mental health around water. And if I can be that one that helps one, then hopefully their legacy is created for somebody else later. So that's my TED Talk.
We appreciate your TED Talk. Thank you for joining the family reunion chat. Okay, the group chat. That was such a mouthful. I think take up space is a thing. I want to hit on the conversations about affording, because affordability, Jordan, you just mentioned affordability, and not having the $10,000 bikes and just being able to show up on a fixie, probably for maybe a sprint. I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, we just need to bring the Huffy bikes back. And I was like, well, the Huffy gonna huff and then won't blow anybody down because it's going to be tired. But the point of it is, you don't have to have an expensive bike to try. You just have to have a will. And then there will be people who have access to extra bikes who might give you a bike. Like, I think, Jordan, somebody just gave you a bike during the pandemic. So we don't know how. It's just a matter of, are you willing to try? And so taking up space, to Yvonne's point about clubs, I want to kind of go back there. You took up space by creating space. You were like, look, I'm tired of not seeing anybody in terms of multiple people at one time looking like me. Let me create a safe space for initially women of color, but now it's an inclusive environment for all women who want to come and who are allies. Talk about building that, because now you have over 1,300 members across the United States. That's not an easy feat to build a platform for women to be able to share their experiences. So talk a little bit about what that has been for you.
Well, I always have to give the initial plug to Black Triathletes Association, because that's really where the party got started. And through Tony Brown, when I was talking to him, I was kind of on his pseudo board. So I mentioned to him about, you know what, we need a space just for women, because there's questions that we want to ask, but we don't want everybody else to know we're asking, like, do I wear underwear on my cycling kit? And when do I wear a bra? These things that you don't want to ask in the public. Some people are okay with that. But, so that's what created Fast Chicks. It started about 50 odd or so women. And it grew because it was a safe space to have these discussions. It was also an accountability program. So if you posted on Fast Chicks that you plan to do XYZ, guess what? If we don't hear back from you in about a week or two, we're pulling you up. We're tagging you. We're atting you to see where are you in accordance with that thing you had said you were going to do. And so that's really how it's grown. It's been the accountability and the community of it. In the fact that if I live in Jersey, I can put out a post and say, hey, I need somebody to ride with in Jersey. Boom. 10 people show up for you to do that. Or I'm in Charlotte. What's happening? Boom. 15 people show up, or at least find you something to do. So creating that network has been ever so critical. You talk about the cost of the sport. And we do try to explain, you don't need all the things. And we have, I'm going to call it a donation program. Whereas if you need that bike, somebody's got a bike and somebody's going to ship it to you. And they're not going to ask anything from you other than you race with it and you do well. Same with kits and you name it. And so it's grown through the years. We started having our meetups, our big race meetups at Williamsburg, Rev 3. And we started with about, 40 or so women, but it was like 5 times as many as they had the year before. And then as it grew, the biggest show up we had was about 119 women. And that made up 86% of all the women that was actually at the race that year. And so we show up, we show out, and we get on the podium. And we bring along other people with us along the race course. They see our kits, boom, bang, it's out there. We're encouraging. We're staying until the last person is on the finish line. It's that spirit and that energy of the club of Fast Chicks that helps it to grow so that others want to be a part of it. They have that FOMO factor, which we really work off of, but they want to be a part of that energy and that enthusiasm through our camps, through our panels, through our clinics. We really try to do that education piece of the sport and let women know it's not really that hard. You just put some things together. We got you a plan, and there you go. And guess what? Someone's going to be at that race to support you in that, or someone's going to be along the way to help you with that. Someone's going to be able to answer the questions that you have. And so that's really just how it's bloomed through that. I'm going to call it word of mouth, the exposure, seeing us out there. Many of the race directors love to put our picture up there, in support of the race for their diversity and inclusion. And that's another discussion we need to have. But women see us, other people see us, and they want to be us by the end of that race. And so that's the sport of it.
Yeah. Shout out to Black Triathletes Association. So if you're interested and you're watching this or you're watching the playback, go to Facebook, join the group, join the conversation. It's for you. And as well, Fast Chicks, join the group, join the conversation. There are fast guys that support and believe in the group too. So just be able to come in. So Fast Chicks and Black Triathletes Association. So shout out to both of those organizations. Let's talk about, I think, stereotypes and being poster children, as Yvonne said, being the faces. That's a conversation to have. So let's open up and talk about, how does it make you feel when you are the poster child for an event only for one post and then you don't see it anywhere else, and you don't see diversity sprinkled out throughout the year. What does that look like for you? What does it feel like? What are some stereotypes that you've had to deal with that's associated with that? And Meryl, please chime in, from your race directing perspective.
I mean, if I may jump in first. So I got into this in 2020, first official race 2021. And I got approached like at registration, like, are you doing a triathlon? I was like, yeah. And they're like, can we follow you? Can we record? And so when I first came into it, I saw it as, wow, they saw me, it's honoring. And then when I really started to see, race day and couple thousand people out, and it was like, wow, I really don't see anybody else that looks like me. And then I started seeing myself be posted. I feel like at the time I felt special. As I continued to be in this sport and I started to ask the questions and I started to find out not only prices, but like locations, times of things, the trainings and other small things that got into it, the more I guess I got asked to, or the more I saw marketing and also working in entertainment, it kind of becomes not only disrespectful to me, but it kind of just becomes, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to, I don't, I maybe I didn't figure out my full answer fully about it. But I will say from a personal standpoint, I feel grateful that there is representation. I will say that. I'm thankful that regardless of what their intention was of using somebody of color, there is somebody of color who might see that post. And I think that's what's more important to me is seeing somebody that looks like you. But at the same time, sometimes yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a kind of like the black sheep or the unicorn aspect. And I also dealt with that in the military. So that also could be a personal reason. I was one of the only special force rescue swimmers in the Navy while I was in. It was one of seven. And so, I mean, I was one of the recruiting posters, didn't get paid for it. So when I get out and they're using this stuff again and I'm not getting paid for it, in my mind, I'm like, well, I guess, they're using my face, which is good because now other people, but I don't know. I'm going to take that. I'm going to break down. I want to hear other people's perspective on that. But sometimes it feels honoring and other times I kind of feel just being used for a check in the box. My
I
two
have
cents.
perspective on that. So I did grow up in Southern California. The high school that I went to El Monte, California. So I'm like, I used to be 20 minutes from LA, Pomona. So shout out to that area. And I was one of two Black kids in that high school. And so I was very used to, as a child, being the only. I was on a swim team, and just because my mom dropped me off at the community center because that was her babysitter. But then growing up as an adult, being used as a poster child, I am seen very much. Sometimes I think race directors look for my picture and just put it out there. And I think in the past, it was like, oh, okay, it's a good photo. But now I realize, because of the journey I'm on and the reason I started, because I shared that, I saw people who look like me. And now, because other women may see me as someone who looks like them, I realize it is not about me anymore. I may have started thinking it was about me, like, oh, I'm going to do a triathlon, I'm going to do me, me, me. And then now I get out there and I hear the stories from women of what inspired them. I share what inspired me, why I started. And so, Vaughn, if people come up to you because something I said, I'm sorry. But I mean, I just share, how this all began, because they share that they saw me in Hot Chocolate Race, or they saw me in the Santa Race. And I know it's the race director looking for an image. I always, same smile, same lipstick, outfit. So they look to add it in places. I'm in newsletters and stuff like that. And it's no longer about me anymore. It's about making sure that other women who look like me feel that it's possible and that they see someone. And again, that's how I started. So I look at it as a blessing and an opportunity I do have that mental baggage, but I've tried to work through that now, because when I show up now to races, it's like sometimes I don't see people all year long until it comes to that particular race. Sometimes I don't see women until we're at a Fast Chicks meetup, but they came because they saw Fast Chicks all over. And like Vaughn said, they want to be like us. It was like 50 here, now it's 100. And why? Because they saw those images. They saw that it was possible. And I'm okay being a poster child if it means that a woman gets off the couch, gets out of depression, gets out of whatever that thing is to get on the course because they saw an image that I was in. So I've transitioned my way of thinking over time because of that.
Now, I absolutely agree that it should be bigger than you. Again, I'm a both and. I also see Jordan's point. And there's a question that I kind of sunk my head down when I saw the question, because I'm like, it's such a good question. And we have an anonymous attendee who says, how do you negotiate your worth so the bar isn't set low, so low for those who come behind you when it comes and relates to race and product marketing, discounts, partnerships, ambassadorships, or even getting those opportunities to tap into a different market if you're in it? So how does this play a part now? Because if you're doing this and no one is saying, hey, can I use your picture? But in return, maybe I'm giving you a race entry or a race entry to give to you and your friends. How do you equate that? Because there is a such thing as value and there's a worth. And I know a lot of times, as I'm going to say use an I statement, I find it hard to balance that worth and getting the opportunity. So chime in, please.
I know for me, I use as an opportunity to build on that relationship. So if I see the race director put me in there, I'm asking for other opportunities. You know, one time it's fine. The second time I do reach out. There's discounts to see if there's other things that I can piggyback on. I did have a restaurant and I did have a food truck. So if I'm in the image, then I'm bringing the truck and I'm not paying it. So there was a whole barter system going on. I don't let it go so long. There's so much of that, but they're also, you know, recognizing it is a business and I have a business. And so that's some things that I would piggyback on, but I know others have more to share.
You see, as a race director too, the triathletes sign a waiver giving you permission to use their image at any time in your promotion. So really and truly, I mean, you do have that leeway to use it without having to give anything in return. I mean, it will be up to the particular race director if they want, depending on how they want to use that image, to say, well, okay, look, I want to put you in my marketing campaign for how many pictures I want to use, and then do some sort of a trade-off on that. But they do have the authority to use those images without giving anything in return. Is it fair or not? I don't know. It's something that has been going on for a long time. So when I do my marketing, I will go through my pictures and I will say, oh, this one looks cute and this one looks good and this one might do something. And then I use it.
And that's another thing.
I started, probably haven't started. I mean, we've been, what's the word for it? Just capturing what the Fast Chicks brand, or what the diversity, what we bring to the fight is what I'm going to call it. So when we say we're going to do a race, we're bringing to bear tens of, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It depends on how long a weekend. We're bringing our dollars, we're bringing our family, we're doing events, we're part of your community, we're giving back, we're volunteering. And so that has a package price to it. And so the good race directors will have a meeting with me and they will say, okay, I want Fast Chicks to come to my race. Well, why do you want Fast Chicks to come to your race? I know why, and you know why, but I need you to tell me why. Okay, fine. You want more diversity at your race. That's great. And this is what we want in return. And so I have to give a shout out to Magic Sports. When we did Tri Louisville last year, They connected us with the Black Tourism Board, their tourism board. They sponsored some of our events. We did, we had a brunch, we had other events with their local African-American and women-owned businesses. They gave us discounts, race entry, a tent. I mean, they rolled out the red carpet because they said it's what they want, and they showed us that we were what they want. And I didn't realize that when we went to that race, Jaja, and when he asked for diversity, we were diversity. There was maybe two others that were not rocking the Fast Chicks brand that were at that race. And now others will see in that local community. We're replicating, once again this upcoming year, but we're making it bigger and better. Other race directors contact me. They say, how can I get Fast Chicks to my race? Here's the template. Can you follow the template? Can you give us this or even more? Because you're going to be utilizing us to bring more people to your race. You're going to be utilizing us to say that your race is diverse, which is great because we want more exposure. We want more people out there. We want more people off the couch to see themselves in this experience. We want to share this. And so it's a little give and take whenever we're trying to expand really the brand of the triathlon community to others, expand it past where it's been before. So we'll continue to work that messaging, particularly with the race directors that say they want a more diverse experience for their participants, and then they're actually to be able to show and prove it.
Yeah,
and
thinking about
share
that.
this with the other women-owned triathlon clubs, Black-owned, and they'll say, yeah, they want us to come out to this race and they're giving us a 10% race discount. Ma'am, no. Let's go back and do some other figures, because if they really want you there, 10% is the bare minimum. And I understand race directors are really struggling right now, but there has to be a balance for what we're bringing and then what we're going to be able to get back. Sorry about that, Rachel.
The whole weekend, all in the community from early in the morning to late at night.
Yes, the Muhammad Ali Center, we were there. Yeah. I mean, this year we're getting our own ice cream. We're really doing this thing.
I think the key point with that, Yvonne, is that I think you said Magic Mike, the race in Louisville, Tri-Louisville.
Yes.
They brought in a partnership to help tourism. So it's like thinking outside the box. I think her name is Carol. She wrote in it, getting outside of your comfort zone. This sport truly can grow if we do that. But are you willing to take the risk? Because the return on the investment could be great. But Reggie, you wanted to get in, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to say your thoughts.
No, Michanda, I was just going to say, being intentional and deliberate, I see one of the other statements here is about the ambassadorships. And, there's so many companies out there that are looking for ambassadors. And, we look at ourselves, in today's world, social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we all have our personal brand, right? And being true to that brand of ourselves, our clubs, or what have you. And, we're going to get approached. We're going to approach others, but being intentional and deliberate on what is it that we're looking for out of that partnership. Is it just, free something or what have you? And, not selling your soul, but, working with your network and, having those advocates and sponsors and mentors to help you through that process of, hey, is this really the kind of the right deal? And, looking at what's in return, because somebody's going to give you something, but they're going to be looking for X plus, in return. So making sure that you can kind of deliver on what it is that they're asking for. And, you don't want to be endorsing a product that, oh, hey, I got this, but then it's, again, not true to your values. So understanding, kind of reading, what's on the dotted line and making sure that it's true to your brand there. Because if you're somebody that is, doesn't drink alcohol, right? Then, you don't want to be endorsing an alcohol brand, for example. That's a good, distinction there of, not matching the brand with the individual. So, just keeping those things in mind, because it looks good when they approach you, but then this the unknowns that come with that as well. So those are just some of the things to keep in mind, and then even talk to folks in your network, and even talk to maybe prior ambassadors or what have you, and ask them what their experience was. What did they like, what didn't they like, so that way you can get an idea.
Jaja, were you okay? I saw you coming off mute.
Were you gonna ask me? Were you gonna ask me a question before I?
No, I thought you were going to say something to what Reggie said.
I was just gonna say that is so relatable, and there's certain brands that I decided not to be an ambassador for, just because there was an issue with them having people that look like me on their website. I'm not going to invest my money into buying gear from you if you're not willing to showcase what the sport actually looks like or what the sport should look like. And if I'm not good enough or others are not good enough to be on your website, then I don't need to spend my money here. So I totally agree with Reggie. I spent last year being very intentional about what I wear, knowing that my picture is posted in other places, right? So it's important. People see me. And if that's the case, then I'm going to be very intentional about the brands that I support and the brands that I mention and the brands that I highlight. And I'm being very intentional going forward.
And I will add, because Jaja knows we have influence in this community, whether we believe it or not. What we wear, what we do, where we are, where we race, that is influential on a huge sector of the population. And so we have to remember that. And it's even small things. So for example, we use Betty Designs, Kristen Mayer designs our kits. And last year I said, hey, Kristen, the stringy, sexy back is not working for our women that are more well endowed. It's not going to withstand the test of time. And so she incorporated a racer back design, which is thicker straps, a little bit more formidable for those that need it. And it soared. That's what our ladies wanted. And guess what she did the following season? She added it into her repertoire of her kits and her designs. And now it's a standard. You know why? Because we were unbeknownst the test case, and she saw this is what women want. This is what women need. And so we have an influence at our community, and we just have to keep it. We have to keep it going and supporting those brands, supporting those clubs and communities that support us.
Absolutely. And swimsuits are one thing. Tri kits are another thing, and making sure that they stretch in the right places and fitting over hips that may be more rounded versus narrow. It matters. We've talked about a lot of things from challenges to cost to more recently partnerships and attire. But what does it look like for the future? I understand that this conversation is inexhaustible. We can talk about it for forever. And to Jaja's point, perhaps we should continue the conversation and it continue to develop over time. But for the time that we have today, what does it look like in terms of the future, and what do we want it to look like? What's needed from your vantage point?
So I gave this one a lot of thought because I've been in the game probably the longest. And I won't say when I started, but it was a minute ago. Not a brag, just the truth. I'm experienced. Number one, we have to tell our own stories, and not just in February. So continue to, like through your podcast, Michanda, I mean, we have to keep telling our story so that others will, again, attach to that. And number two, we need to do our own thing. We need to try to do our own thing. And I would liken it to the example of the race in Atlanta, where they brought together the partners and the funding and the sponsors, and they put together that race for people of color, essentially. And so if we are able to do something like that, that's where I see the future going, where it's a multi-sport event. Everyone can go out there. You know, you have the kids out there, et cetera, just family reunion style, if you will, of a race, because that's why we want to do these long distance races, because we see our other friends sign up for it, and we know we're going to have somebody out there on the course, and we could do this. You know what I mean? The head nod, or we can challenge each other. So telling our stories and having our own space carved out that can expand. Because I promise you, when we do that, others, many, many others will come, and we will be able to continue that legacy.
So for me,
I hope that legacy is not trademarked.
So, excuse me, sorry. So, thinking about it and seeing where the future is within this, I think about, I taught a course in your role in diversity and inclusion, and we had an opportunity to have some of the work led by one of the DEI greats, Verna Myers, and it talked about, and I had to write this down. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance, but then it's also they're playing our music. And that's how I look at this. When I think about, triathlon is, what does the future look like for us? Is that, we're being, part of the community. We're in as race directors, coaches, announcers, not just one or two of us, but multiple, and then, we're able to, blend in and have a good time and not feel like, okay, we're here to meet a number, so that's how I'm looking at it from my end when, I look at, my son who's 10 now, and, he did his first triathlon in August. And the first thing he was, when he was done, he was like, Dad, when's the next one? And I was like, oh, okay. So, this is great. I think about that is, how do we keep this going? And it's not just a one time a year conversation. We're continuing the conversation every day. There's not laws being passed to minimize, this effort, and we can be part of this. We can show up and we can show out. And, I know I enjoyed it when I finally got to meet Yvonne in person at Ironman Atlantic City 70.3. And, I saw from a distance she had some of her athletes racing. And I saw her, we said our, pleasantries. I went on. And then I was coming around on a bike turn. All of a sudden, I hear the voice. And, that gave me that little momentum to, get that boost up the hill. But, it's things like that, when we can come in person in real life and have those conversations and, really just inspire one another and not just, again, be that face on a brochure that is, promoting it for one point in time. That's my approach.
Since
Yeah,
you
I
put your
love.
hand up, Jordan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I love what's being said, and I think to add to that and to add a couple different approaches to my goals is, especially in the land of LA and just Southern California, um, I've had the opportunity to just see how much your network is your net worth, and I think a lot of the exposure can also come from, hey, I don't want to race, but I'm a photographer. Well, hey, like race director, I have a couple friends that want to do your videography. I have a couple friends that can put together, content for you. Hey, I'm a nurse and I'm looking for extra hours. hey, race directors, and really just expanding out, not only being the athlete at these events, but also being staff. You know what I'm saying? That a lot of times that's also a big thing is sometimes you just want to, again, see somebody you can nod to, talk to, but also, just see people in different ways. Like it's great to see other athletes. But one of the goals that I have, and I've sat down with a few race directors and a couple others that work in the production side, is how do we get more representation and people of color into the production side, and getting into that, because again, I think I can only do so much as the athlete and as an advocate for the sport when showing up in that aspect. But I also, I want to grow to Yvonne's part where I can just show up and just cheer other people on, and I've been able to do that just by inviting friends and getting them into it. But I want to also continue to create the opportunities for people that maybe, hey, like I'm a marathoner and I can't swim. Hey, guess what? We could put together a relay. Come do a relay with me. I'll swim. I've done that a couple times, and really just expanding out. So from a personal standpoint, I advocate trying to get my friends, hey, if you bike and run, I'll swim. Oh, you don't have a bike? Cool. We'll have one of my other friends come bike. And that's how I've been able to kind of pipeline people into it and catch the bug, is by just telling them you could just do one leg. Just come and do one leg. And then they're like, oh man, like, like that was a fun 5K, or wow, that 10K, like I think I could do the bike. I'm like, I think you can too, and then you ease back on them, and you get somebody else into it. And again, sometimes that's just the pipeline. And for the legacy of it all, and it's not trademarked yet, but the legacy of it is I actually want to continue to get swimming back into the public education out here. Pool access is very, very limited in the inner city of Los Angeles. And I would love to continue to use the pools that we have and pool accesses and programs to get more kids of color back into water polo and swimming, and just getting to the ocean safely, getting to the lagoons. Because then even when you bring up the word triathlon, it's not as intimidating. I know that there's a couple events that we have out here where they use pools, to some of your similar points. We use a pool for the Pasadena Triathlon, and we use a pool for there's one out in like Pomona where they use a pool. And just getting just a few more that have pool access, or just ocean, because ocean's a little intimidating for some people, you know what I'm saying? So I think baby stepping your way into a triathlon or doing reverse triathlons. So yeah, I'm just very excited to what I've been able to do and whom I've been able to connect with. And again, like being on panels like this and hearing people with more experience than I've been living, it's very I'm very thankful to be a part of this lineage now. And my goal is to continue to take the things that people have said, and now how do I continue to adapt these into either the way that I can work or the way that I process, and how I can get the next generation of folks that I come encounter with into the sport or just into multis. So, yeah.
Okay, so coming from the race director's perspective, because it seems I'm the only race director on here, right? And for the time when my race started back in 80, of course, there were nobody that looked like us racing over the years, and that continues. It's just within recent years, I have started seeing a lot more people coming into the sports in my race. Now, the area that I'm in is a predominantly Caucasian area. So getting a diverse mix into the race, it's very difficult because there are not too many of us out here where I am. So my thing is, in order to get my race diversified, I am looking to you folks who can send people my way, who would actually help perhaps bring more people in. When they see people like us racing, then more people would come. It's because it's a challenge to get our people out here to race in Monto. I don't know if you all might be familiar with the Hamptons, which is where Monto is. So we know what the Hamptons is. Okay. So, I mean, I would love to have more people in my race. I believe I am the only African American race director on Long Island. At least I think I know I am. But I have had people supporting my race over the years, I think not because of the fact that I'm an African American, but because of what the race represents and the fact that it has been long-standing, it has a really good reputation. So people come to the race. I would love to have more people of my color in it, but it's difficult. I really don't know how to go about it. I don't know where to approach people to come in. So that's where I would need help. And I'm not ashamed to ask for it.
Well, you got us right here, Merle. I mean,
good.
You know, you mentioned Black Triathletes Association. You got the Fast Chicks.
Yes.
I mean, I am not familiar with your race.
Okay.
And so really it's going to be about getting the word out to this portion of the community, right, so that we know more about it, and we go from there.
Good.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking about coaches. So I wrote down coaches and race directors. And so perhaps let's link you up with coaches in that area who might be diverse coaches, right? And they can say, hey, we're going to do a race with you. So I think exposure is everything. And so we will definitely make sure that we get you linked, because this was my first time hearing about your race as well. And so we want to do what we can do to support you, because at the end of the day, we are family and we have to support each other.
I'm going to pull up to the race, Auntie.
And the strange thing is that this race has been around for so long, and yet nobody knows about us. I guess we are the best kept secret, right?
Auntie, I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up to Long Island. I got you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like we have some takeaways for your race, and to get you maybe even plugged into some of the groups, because I hadn't heard of it either, but sounds like in our family meeting that we're having right now, we have a takeaway here to connect back with you.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what these conversations are about, you know, building that community, that network. Jordan, I love what you said about pulling in people with different skill sets to bring something together. And I think that's ever so critical in so that we can have that community that expands.
And it looks like questions people are asking what's the name of the race. So can you mention what's the name of your race again?
Oh, it's the RJA Memorial Mighty Monto Triathlon.
Yes, I just put it in the chat for those who answered it. So I added the email or website address so that you can have the website for that race.
And then Megan and Kelly, I'm going to throw this over to you. You know, we still have some time left in Black History Month. And, you know, since a lot of people don't know about this race, I think this would be a good opportunity here maybe to list this race in one of our upcoming communications, so that way all participants, you know, can be able to hear. I think this is kind of like one of those low pieces of hanging fruit that we can help our auntie out with, and you know, get some more exposure, you know, plant the seed, and then, you know, all of us will be able to benefit here.
So next family reunion will be June 8th.
All right.
You got the
date.
I'm bringing the mac and cheese.
Yeah, but
there you go.
Whoa, hey, that's a big one now.
Hey, qualifications are.
So we have a post-race party, have soul food.
I love that. I love it. Well, we got that problem solved right here. And, you know, for next year, so for those of you who haven't done your race schedule, check out Mighty Monto race that's in Long Island, register for it, support it, or perhaps let's just send donations. You know, if we can't register, maybe we just send donations so that you can continue to survive, so that then in 2025, that kind of rhymed there, then we can really make it a true family reunion and, you know, provide it. Also, y'all, we're going a little over, and can
I share what I would like to see, though, in my personal goal before we change the topic?
Yes, I was just going to go to go ahead, Jaja.
Because we overlook this part quite often. It
Okay.
is considered the fourth leg of triathlon, and that is nutrition. And that is a key goal of mine, to share more and to have others share about nutrition. How do they fuel a race? How do they lead up to the race week? How do you fuel yourself while you're on the bike? What is an electrolyte? Is water just good? I mean, we advise people, this is your first sprint, or this is your first 70.3 that we would advise, which will be Augusta. People always mention Augusta, and they don't mention the heat or how you should hydrate. And then we're at races and people are on the floor or they're in IVs and they don't, finish competing because they did not think about that part of triathlon. So one of my personal goals for this coming year is to bring others to help educate our folks on nutrition, how to hydrate, how you really cannot outperform a bad diet. Food can affect your mood. It's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to continue when you are hungry and moody and bloated and have GI issues and you have the bubble guts because you didn't properly fuel your week or your race. And these sugary drinks that are advertised in some communities as this is something that you should be using, we need to move away from that between processed foods and junk and things like that. And that can change people's lifestyles. And that's really how the lifestyle changes within people's nutrition. So that's something I'm passionate about. That's what I'll be sharing in my upcoming podcast that I'll release next month, sharing for every race that I participate in this year, which will be one a month, long distance triathlon, and sharing with others and bringing them forward to, what did you use to fuel and how did that work for you? And what would you like to share with the community? Because we just don't hear that enough. And that's sometimes how people are not successful because they didn't know how to properly fuel a race.
Come on for the plug. You better plug yourself. Come on. So be sure to look at that because that is true. And our body types are very different. And so fueling what works for us may not work for everyone else. So be sure to check that out when it is released. So be sure to follow Jaja for more information. So there's a lot happening and we definitely want to keep the conversation going, but we also want to be respectful of your time because it is late on the East Coast and Jordan is just getting the party started on the West Coast. So with that said, we hope that these conversations will continue to move forward. But there is one thing that USA Triathlon is wanting to do for this month that will end, and we got an extra day, on the 29th. So be sure to submit for the scholarship. You can self-submit or self-nominate yourself. You can submit on behalf of someone else, and you can submit on behalf of an organization that you see that is doing good. We want to eliminate a barrier. You can find the link in the bio, and we'll try to get someone to post it in the chat. But you can find the link in the bio wherever this is posted. But submit. Finances are a huge barrier to entry. It's not the only one, but it is a huge one. And so we want to be sure to get as many scholarships out there that's possible so that you can have a good start to your 2024 year. With that said, thank you for tuning in. And if we could quickly go around, do a quick round robin. I like to do this on my podcast, just kind of end. And let's just say one thing that we are grateful for because of triathlon really quickly. And I'll start with you, Jordan, because I see you first.
I am grateful for exposure.
All right. Jaja?
I am grateful for the women that were seen that allowed me to see myself in this space.
All right. Reggie?
I'm grateful for the experience that I've been able to have and then converting that into the impact that I'm continuing to make.
All right. Miss Merrill?
I am grateful for the people that I've met over the last 43 years. because some of my triathletes have become my best friend. So it's like a family as far as I'm concerned. I call them my triathlon family. So I am grateful to each and every one of them who have supported me over the years.
And to the one who just went to do a dress change, outfit change, Yvonne Spencer.
I had to plug in, and that's actually what I am most grateful for is those women of the community, of my fast chicks community, of my friendships that I've built, how they pour into me so that I can pour back into them and pour back into this thing that we love to do. So I am grateful for that.
Awesome. If we have 1 second, I will say what I'm grateful for. But Miss Merrill, in 1 minute, can you share quickly how triathlon has changed over the last 43 years before we sign off? Really quickly.
Yeah, it has become more popular, obviously. And I think people have, as you said, there's more for the last 43 years, it's become more color friendly, but if I can describe it like that. And but on Long Island, there are so many people into the sport now than there was before. So it's actually a growing sport I've seen the growth of the sport over the last 43 years. It went from a hardly known activity to something that's well known worldwide. So I have seen the growth.
Awesome. And we're going to continue to see it grow. I am grateful for each of you attending, but most importantly, triathlon has been a pivotal opportunity for me in changing my life and giving me an opportunity to live a different lifestyle and continue to be healthy. And so thank you for participating with us today. We hope to see this conversation continue to grow. Check out the Try Beginner's Luck podcast. We share stories from diverse backgrounds from all over. When you see my page, you see diversity. And I love it for you and for me. And remember, whenever you try, you always win. So get out there, try, be a part of the conversation. Write into diversity at usatriathlon.org to address your concerns so that we can have your voice in order to be able to make the change. My name is Michanda Myles, also known as Michanda Shines on all your social media platforms. I am the host of the Try Beginner's Luck podcast. It has been an honor to be the facilitator for this conversation, and we hope to see you at many, many more. We are out. Have a good night. Bye.